And we're live.
And
Hello
awake.
and welcome
And
to
I'm
the
awake.
114th
And I'm awake.
episode of Game Theory Gang. I'm your host, Maddie ALLin, with Brisology and ChrispyMan of Hexfire.io. Welcome.
Howdy, Maddie. How's it going?
Hello, Maddie. Have you? Can you confirm for us that you are not under duress?
I'm
News
not
now.
under duress.
Okay.
I drove like 13 or 14 hours yesterday from Illinois to Austin, Texas. I'm here for the Consensus Conference. I'm gonna talk to the SEC crypto mom Hester Pierce if
Oh,
if
nice.
if she's in the crowd as she said that she would be on Twitter, and so that'll be fun. And then just in general, I'm looking for rich Ethereans to pump your PLS bags if you'll
So
allow it.
you're not under duress. You're delirious.
Well, you guys, I mean, everybody who watches this show knows that I've been doing some experiments in DeFi as always, and so is that what you guys are referring to?
Yes. I mean, I don't know. Somebody said you launched a token today, but I didn't remember that. I remembered that a token was launched in August of 2023, and that Funding Gym had gifted all of that supply to you, as well as put up $10 worth of liquidity.
Yeah. Funding Gym, I think, created the experiment for 33 different YouTubers in the Hex and Pulse Chain ecosystem. And
Mhm.
the whole point of it was just to experiment and to point out that anybody can create a token. And, some people might assign that value and some people might not. Sami had one. This was the original Asami token. There was Chaos token, and different people
I have
reacted
one.
differently. Yeah, so I think I bought like a tenth of every single person's coin just because I wanted to understand how liquidity works and show my support for all the amazing YouTubers we have.
You wanted
Yeah,
to
yeah.
own me, didn't you, Maddie?
I mean, I did actually gift Johnny Chaos's brother some Chaos token when we were hanging out in real life, and he thought it was like really cool. So,
Mm.
yeah.
Woo.
But yeah, it's Funding Jim. He made 369 million of them. We can talk a little bit about the tokenomics there. So Rags to Riches had 369 million of his token, but there were only $10 placed in liquidity, and that was to help emphasize the fact that market cap isn't real, and anybody can create a token. The community had mixed feelings about it, and some people they wished that somebody didn't make a token in their name. For me, I love the whole experiment of it all, and so yeah, I guess taken it one step further, and I added just this evening I added $88,000 of liquidity in a PLSX pair,
Wow.
and
We saw that.
I think pairing something with PulseX is really cool. We're here on Game Theory Gang, and I think it's cool because that's the only one that's purely deflationary. And so I think like that has a unique property to be paired in an LP pool, because when people buy Maddie token, whether it's with Wrapped Pulse or PLS or PulseX or whatever token that they're feeding into Pateas, the swap router is trying to make a match there. I think it'll work better whenever Pateas manually adds the route.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, so I would say this to people, because I know people go nuts when they see things happening. Please check your slippage. Right, please, please, please. I did because I saw the announcement and look, right? And so there were people getting hammered with like 40% slippage on Pateas when they could have just gone to PulseX and gotten almost no slippage. So
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
there
Okay.
and that's only because remember, this is software, right? So somebody has to do something It's not like incredibly smart stuff that just learns by itself. There are certain things that can happen automatically, but it's software. So like you said, it's possible that, Proteus may not pick up on it properly in the moment and you end up with very high slippage. So if something doesn't look right, stop and reevaluate what you're doing so you don't get whacked,
That's a great tip for people to to trade it on PulseX, which is where the liquidity pair was set up.
Yeah.
Once
Pro tip.
basically, I believe if I had launched it, well, I didn't launch it, but if I had created the liquidity pair with Pulse, then Proteus would have picked it up more automatically with the routing. However, the disadvantage would be then forever the token would be paired with something that's not purely deflationary and would have had a different tokenomics to it.
In a way, it's a feature, not a bug. But I hate to go too far onto this subject, but this goes for all tokens. This goes for all tokens, guys. Go take a look at where the liquidity lives and make sure you get your best deal if you're going to do it. Now, personally, I've also gone and done a ton of research this week, just nailing down even further in my head. PulseX is the place. It's a primary. It is the place that's hot right now. Now, of course, we got. I guess I won't name them all, but I mean, of course, we have other dexes and other aggregators going on. There's like 3 or 4 really good ones. But when we look at the numbers, it's like, oh my God, there's just so much liquidity and so much volume just going through V1 alone, never mind V2. So that is the core. And so now we've got people that have gone and made tokens that are explicitly for 9mm. So you should be looking to see if it's a better deal. And the same thing with 9-inch and et cetera. So.
And that's a tip right there that is really would help anybody who's, in Pulse chain.
Yeah,
I've noticed that too, where the slippage on one exchange will be way different. And for me, that's a big deciding factor, is whether there's an exotic pair present or whether it's a token paired with Pulse, the native coin. Is that your sense, or is there more to it than that?
Well, there can be more to it. I mean, I don't want to speak for Proteus and what they do, and I know Omnis and the Tetra guys are doing something different, and the different wallets that are out there. God, I can't think of Internet Money was the one I was thinking of. I know that they're all doing different things, but they all have different types of software that they've written or have adapted. And so I don't know necessarily if it has to be that, Pulse is better than PulseX, etc. But yeah, just in general, right? I mean, these systems are going to read the code, or they're going to read the blockchain, figure out what they think the best deal is, and once in a while they're blind, right? And so we came across this because we figured out, or at least by the same types of things going on, that it makes sense to give the guys a call at each of those projects to make sure they know that you're launching something if you're trying to provide liquidity and you want people to get the best deal, because it can make a hell of a difference, right?
Yeah, and that, I hope that the bots aren't the ones profiting here. That they're not the ones completing the path, but I guess that kind of goes with the experiment of DeFi. And I think that I just updated the tweet to add that additional information that swapping on PulseX is creating less slippage.
Yeah, and it can be transitory, so it's not all the time. And I'm not trying to take the business away from anybody either. Just saying. But I was like, I was like, hey, what is this? What's this cost for $20? And 40% slippage. I was like, well, that doesn't make sense. There was like 100,000, well, more than 100,000 in liquidity at the time, and so yeah. So.
Yeah, the price shot up there. It started at $1, and I guess it's at $3.85 now.
Wow.
Even with that thick slippage.
Yeah, and
not thick slippage. I mean, a thick liquidity of starting with 88,000. That's what Back to the Future would do. It's like 88.
Well, yeah, and I got to tell you that Well, first, I guess for everybody listening, they might be wondering what's going on. I had no idea any announcement was being made, and I hadn't seen this until somebody sent it over to me. It was your tweet until it was already up 100%. They already had done 1x, and then people are talking about liquidity in the chat, and it's very true. It matters, you know, what happens with liquidity and how prices go. But this is a rather heavy liquidity for a start.
Yes.
So, you know, and you can see that if you go look at the amount of volume and how far the price went, it's not the same type of a launch, because it's not a launch, but it's a launch of a pool. But it's
Mhm.
not the same type of price action, because a lot of times, right, you'll see just $4,000 or $5,000 on new tokens, the meme tokens. I mean, sometimes they come in heavier, so they're very much will pump quicker, you know, for that. And so somebody was mentioning, well, you want slippage, you know, for there to be pumps, and yeah, of course, I guess money exiting or value exiting from the buyer's hands into the system helps the system. But in this case, it wasn't going to liquidity. It was gonna be cut off to somewhere else, to other liquidity pools, where the slippage might even be higher because it's going to try to monkey around to figure its way all the way there. So I guess, you know, ups and downs. If you're looking for, of course, if you're trying to manage token price to go up, if that's what you're thinking, yeah, slippage is really great that way. But if you're trying to protect people, that's why we tell people about things like this, right? So, you know.
So
Yes.
now that the coin is launched, Maddie, what can you tell us about this? What is
Well, yeah. So I was starting to go over the tokenomics. It was, launched not by me. I had nothing to do with the launch. I didn't know it was going to happen. So,
Mm.
don't call it an immaculate conception, but at least it's it's something. It was an experiment that was started by Funding Jim, and that matters for these types of things. Me living in the United States, I can't per se, depending on your
so? I'm
interpretation of
sorry,
things, I
Maddie.
can't just go click around and create my own token and
Is your Maddie? Is the coin you're talking about the one that Gary launched
yes,
a long time
Oh,
ago?
last year, yeah.
yes,
You put that up on your Twitter today?
yes.
Briz
I'm
is
sorry.
Briz is shining us on.
I'm like, I must be checked out. I'm like, why?
Oh,
Was I not paying attention for the first 10 minutes?
so here's another thing you probably need to go do, Maddie. So the guys are putting in the chat, and I think somebody else told me this too, that deck screeners flagging the token as a honeypot.
Ooh.
So at some point you'll have to contact deck screener and talk to them and explain what's going on with the token. A number of the Go Pulse, this is a Go Pulse token.
Is that
So
that must not be the primary pair then, because I'm not seeing that here on
I don't know. I had heard it from somebody else, but I see it in the chat. If this persists, right, and you get that kind of report, you got to contact them and talk to them. And one of the reasons has to do with their ability to automatically read the code that's in the
well,
contract for GoPulse.
if people are on the okay. Oh, interesting. That's good to know. Um yeah, if people are using the pair that was created by Funding Jim that had $10 of dye
I'm
in it.
confused, Maddie. This says it was launched 57 minutes ago.
Yeah,
So that's
the pool. Yeah.
that's when the pool was launched.
Gotcha.
So that's when the V2 liquidity pair between 80,000 Maddie tokens and $80,000 worth of Pulse X.
Yeah. Grav answered your question, Maddie, and this is like really, this is the kind of knowledge you're not going to get in other places, because we're going to talk about it. But he's talking about the V1 pair. Yeah. So perhaps that shows up as that alert. There's a little bit
Oh,
itty
there's the
bitty.
Axis pair there.
Yeah, there's a little itty bitty V1 pair. Yeah, the $10 or whatever. It's up to $40 now, man. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I don't know if that's even coming up for me.
Yeah, it's right on the
away
page
there.
down here towards the bottom. It says V1 Maddie Die.
Oh, there we go.
DAI. Yeah. This
Okay,
one.
so it says this pair has very little liquidity.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
Well,
Maybe
this one
somebody can,
does because it's not the
maybe
main
somebody
pair.
can tell us where the flag's coming up.
So I guess I'll drop this in the chat so people can be looking at the same thing I am.
Yeah, and so do you want to? Are you going to talk about the chart and what's happening with it?
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about whatever people want. I think Brisology was kind of getting caught up here along with everybody else. You know, it's uncommon, I think, for somebody in my position as a YouTuber to be like, you know, given an entire supply from somebody who is so upstanding in the community, and to be, you know, part of this long-term experiment that's already been playing out with like the $10 of liquidity. And then I'm extending the experiment even further by, you know, having added $80,000 of liquidity, keeping that $1 ratio from the start.
Yeah, yeah. And I know that with what you're doing, you're not telling people, hey, go buy this, and we're not telling people to go buy it. It's not financial advice, but this will be interesting to watch how it proceeds, because people do, whether they see this chat, see this or not. People obviously, every time something launches, you see a pump, and depending on the amount of attention, it's either a higher or lower. But if you put it on like a 5-minute scale, you'll see that it has been coming up. Yeah, there you go, honey. And there is no, I can't verify it. I just know that the other tokens that we've seen created on GoPulse, sometimes because they have an automated
Okay.
process,
Okay.
they can't figure it out.
Got it. Okay. So that explains why Dex Screener is labeling it as a honeypot that can't be sold, is because they're not reading the data correctly from this contract that was launched on PulseX.com.
Yeah, and yeah, I guess I should stop talking because I'm not an expert on this. I don't know enough about it. But anybody wants to check the code out, you can go over to Scan Pulse and go look at the code, and you'll see that it's it's standardized with the Go,
So
the Go Pulse
why did you
logo and everything
decide
else.
to make this up with some money and make a pool?
I wanted to continue the experiment and to really understand how this works. I think that there's a value to getting people to participate in DeFi. For example, I have a friend that I'm staying with here in Austin, Texas, and he only trades on centralized exchanges, but he started learning how to go on Pulse Chain. He started doing this because he wanted to buy $100 of Maddie token earlier, like, I don't know, 15 minutes ago or something after it launched. And I was busy setting up the stream, so he was like, struggling to learn how to execute a trade. And I don't know the ins and outs of what makes a trade go through in the first like 5 minutes of something, a pair being live. So it's been a learning experience already.
Is the allure of 40% to 85% APR, is that not enough of a allure for your friend to get on to DeFi?
He's got hex stakes. They just aren't coming up all the time, because he's staked for many years. So he had no reason to go on Pulse Chain for all this time, for a year.
I mean, but you can give him a reason. Hey, look, there's 85% APR right here waiting for you to take it.
I love your attitude.
Would you like to make 85% a year? That's all you have to ask them. I mean, because he's probably not
Like-
making
like
85%
Yeah,
inside
and
that Coinbase.
I mean, for some people, they would already be involved, and that's great. And if this helps more people get involved, that's great. If I continue
Do
to
you
make this
see
a more
as
and more
a
engaging
vampire
thing,
attack on the rest of the system?
I'm if I'm looking on chain at like where that liquidity came from, it looks like it came from a sacrifice where there was a lot of dollars put in, and then there was a lot of PulseX that was bought. So I think so far on chain, we can know for certain that this has been a net positive so far. And I really hope that it stays that way. I'm, not telling people what the future price is going to be, or I'm not giving people financial advice, but like so far, I've learned things. My friend learned things. It's only been live for like 30 minutes, and I think it's been a provable net positive for the system because those dollars were not participating in PulseX. What do you think, Brisology?
I don't know. I can see it as a net positive to whoever's holding Maddie tokens. And it's a net positive to all the guys who got in about 10 minutes ago so far. I don't know. I don't get why even launch it. Other than it's a money grab.
Dum dum dum.
I'm not saying that.
Here it comes. We got to know. We got to hear.
Where's the money grab?
Dum.
I don't see any proof of that.
You're putting up free Maddie tokens, and people are buying them.
Yeah. So where's the money? So how am I?
Well,
how am I
able
profiting
to
from that?
sell some Maddie tokens and extract value?
I don't think that that's a unique experiment. That's something that's already been done by a lot of people. So that really doesn't interest me.
If anything, we got to hear the rest of the story because there's more to this. But if anything, the buddy who put up the PulseX just put up $80,000 of PulseX at risk.
People are calling me salty. They're saying someone missed out. Dude, it's been up for like 20 minutes, an hour. It's been available for an hour. Like,
But did you
how can I miss
hear?
out on
Did
something
you hear what I
that's
said,
an
Bruce?
hour?
Well,
No, I'm reading.
I mean,
chat.
the guy that put up the liquidity is risking that PulseX. So it's
Yeah.
very real. It's a very real situation, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah. So, but Maddie, obviously, this is just a meme token to start with. So, tell us.
I hope it goes to $1 million.
Is there something else going on here?
Yeah. So, so I can describe like what I would find the most interesting type of experiment to occur here. And that's like not to give anybody any promises and obviously not financial advice. But what interests me greatly would be to see like what would happen if the sacrificers were rewarded with LP tokens that were sent to their vault addresses. Now that creates a condition where the tokens are for sale to anybody out of the liquidity pool, but not from actual selling of the people who were given the LP pair. And so that creates like a extremely interesting kind of genesis situation to me. And that's because, of course, once LP tokens have been sent to these vault addresses, they can't move for at least a week. And so that gives kind of like a fair period of time to where the market can do price discovery without any tokens being sold by people who, didn't buy them. That makes this, in my opinion, much more of like a fair launch or a different type of fair launch than anything that's been done, to my knowledge, before. Because usually there's not that relationship between like having a time delay, having the LP person, the person being able to sell down the token, in this case, are the people who have bought it fairly on market.
Yeah. I always thought about that. It's kind of interesting when you look at a token launch and you assume, just assume that it's a non. It's just a character that's benevolent or neutral, just neutral, right? And they create the token, they put up the value, and the value's set, and they don't do anything, right? They just they set up that pair. Then I think from that perspective, of course, things get super complicated, afterwards. But from that perspective, it's now a game of who can accumulate tokens the fastest at the lowest price. And this is why people call them rugs and all this other stuff, right? And then who plays chicken, right? It's like playing a game where you're expecting the price like the $20, right? Who's willing to wait long enough to get to $20? When do they pull the plug and get out?
Yeah, so I mean, there I think are some unique it's kind of game theory and tokenomics here in this example. For me, I've demonstrated like a 4-year track record of like not extracting value, and being the one who provably like delays gratification, along with you guys and the hundreds of other people who watch our show because they love the idea of delaying gratification. And so part of my experiment, you might guess, would be to follow down that path more. And so, it's I think going to be really, really interesting. Whether it's the God Whales donation of $60,000 and then the community matching that and me using that for Twitter badges and taking no profit, whether it's me putting on a $250,000 conference in Vegas in 2022, taking no profit. And I got to tell you, that is a nightmare for taxes. There's just all these countless examples of where I'm, I think, provably doing the right thing. 185 weeks streaming every Tuesday and Thursday night. So if people haven't figured out that I don't need to like fleece you, then people are going to talk shit. But for the people who know that I have much greater interests in crypto than just price go up or just value extraction, then those are the people who are going to be playing along and maybe learning something and maybe getting to see how it goes. So I'm really excited to see how this plays out, like, given that I don't know that there's ever been an airdrop of LP tokens that in this magnitude. I've kind of seen like some reflection tokens do that type of thing, which was interesting to me, but didn't make a whole lot of game theory sense. But I have seen people airdropping like fractions of an LP token before. But I think it would be particularly interesting in this case because the sacrificers were told that they get nothing. I think it would be particularly interesting to see kind of like a drip scenario play out with the LP getting airdropped to the sacrificers to the point where they don't immediately have the option to cheat like they would if they were providing the liquidity themselves. And again, what's the point of this? It's to create price discovery, and it's to see if there's a way to balance the the ability of people to delay gratification. I think in the end, I think that at the end of the day, Hex is the best long-term store of value, and but that doesn't mean that it's not important to understand the game theory and the tokenomics between one of the greatest inventions of all time, which is the V2 Uniswap contract, and the ability to be able to offer something in new way. Well, not offer something, but to design basically participation in crypto in a way that is not the same thing that we see in central order limit books, in centralized exchanges, and people are creating millions of tokens a day, but are they doing anything different? No. So this is meant to be something different.
When I know there's a lot of detail going on right now. But there's a lot of different things that you're talking about. But I see one of the notes there about a $20 stable coin meme, and then you are talking about the LP tokens. Are you ready to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. What questions do you have?
Well, how about how do you make a coin stable at $20?
So I guess I was explaining to friends, in my personal life, outside of YouTube. Normally a lot of my crypto discussions happen in front of a live studio audience, as it is now. But I was explaining the kind of trying to get people up to speed with some of the truth bombs that Sami puts off, but also some of the long-term delayed gratification stuff that I hear in Twitter Spaces. When I hear from people who have never come on stream before and they say, I've been in Hex since the beginning, or I've been in Hex since the bottom of the bear market. There was a guy I talked to yesterday who has never been through a bull market and started at the bottom of the bear, which is so uncommon. But he was attracted to the idea of our ecosystem being long-term thinking, being Hex centric. So when I'm talking to friends in real life and I'm explaining why Hex went down 99%, part of the explanation is that it had so much of a blow off top. And so I think it would be really interesting to see, instead of having a $1 stablecoin, which is what everybody is doing, how funny would it be if you had a higher ceiling than that? We know that the floor.
I would want to see a 25-cent stablecoin.
Ooh, now Brisology, you could, if you message Funding Jim, he'll send you all of your tokens, and you could try that experiment. But yeah, the $20 bill, it's just it's different than the $1 bill. So yeah, so it just seemed funny to me when I even thought of it, oh yeah, what if you didn't try to pump something from $1 to $1,000 or $10,000? What if that wasn't the goal? So that's when the idea of a ceiling came in, the idea of a floor. And I'm not saying any of this is going to happen. There's no promises. I'm just brainstorming here, right? This is an experiment. But I know, as a matter of fact, that the price can't go below $1 because there's no tokens out there that can make it go below $1 unless PLSX drops, by whatever percent. So that's kind of an interesting relationship that wouldn't be immediately obvious unless you deeply understand how liquidity pools work. Is that the people who bought for $1 or $1.50 or $2, that is not going to go below $1 unless I were to rug. Because there aren't enough tokens in the wild at this point to cause that to happen. So that's kind of interesting to me. And I think that, normally what you see is 5% of liquidity in strong Ethereum pairs as a proportion of the tokens that are truly in circulation versus the percentage that are yield farming basically as LPs. And that's what we're used to with price fluctuations, and which is really kind of weird to me that okay, so 5% of people could sell something and it would go down 99%. In this case, because you would imagine that 80,000 tokens are in the wild, and that was paired with $80,000 of PLSX, that means that there was 100% liquidity among those tokens in the wild, which is a very different profile to start from. That's a very different experiment than what you typically see in crypto. Would you agree, ChrispyMan, that like that's starting with 100% liquidity of tokens in circulation is very different than starting with 5%?
Of course, that's different. I think there's some. So it depends. I think it depends on what people are trying to do with the tokens. It does take some of your power away, because you
To
can't.
pump, you mean?
Well, to affect, let's say it that way, because not having the tokens, right? Plus somebody else, if depending on what's going on, they could come in, and if they got enough capital, they could just take the token and co-op it. If they have enough capital.
And what would their motive be, or what would that look like?
I don't know. I don't know what people might be motivated by that. I mean, I don't know. I just know that I'm just saying that from a control of the token perspective, right? You put it all on the market, right? Because when I created the Hexfire token, I had no plans to do any more than test, kind of like what you're talking about, right? And I think at one point I had 50% of the supply on the market.
Oh wow, that's interesting.
But there was not. It might have been even higher than that, Maddie. I think I don't remember the number. I have to go look and see. But because I wasn't thinking about that, and while there weren't a lot of people interested, now this token has a lot more interest based on what I'm seeing on the chart, and people are doing a lot more with it at the time. But yeah, so somebody came in and bought 20%, right? Go figure. It was cheap, and there's people who do that, and I wasn't thinking about that, and that was a situation at one point where quite a bit was was taken off the market into somebody's hands. Now, is that okay? It's DeFi, yeah. I mean, I put it up there, right?
And that affects like the ability of the token to appreciate. Is that what you're getting at?
Potentially, sure, right? Because it's essentially an unknown person that comes and grabs a large amount of the token supply. Anyways, it's just one little factor. I mean, I think there's that for sure. I think I'm curious to see what does happen.
Another super interesting factor for this experiment is, I've already played with the $10 pair where I bought it all the way up to Maddie token being $1,000, right? But there was only $300 of liquidity there, or $500 of liquidity that I had to inject in order to have the market cap be like, $1 trillion or something. And so, then I sold it down right back to where it started, right? This was months ago that I was like trying to understand how liquidity pools work. And so when I went to do this experiment, I was thinking to myself, it doesn't make any sense for me to be like trying to buy the price up myself or something, because the whole point is to let price discovery happen and to increase the participation. So that kind of that's part of the game theory. I think that people who launch rug pulls, or they launch something and they don't have a track record of showing up on YouTube twice a week for 3 years, and they, their token is only up for 1 day and then it disappears forever. And then they do this 100 times a day. Those people their incentive is so short term that they kind of do have a reason to try to make the price higher or look higher, in this minute after it launches. But in my case, it's I'm really curious to see what type of appetite there is for people, even if there's no promises and there's just an experiment happening. it feels really DeFi to me. It, you know, some people might get hurt by it, but I'm seeing a lot of really supportive comments in the chat here. Bit Finesse says, just sitting here quietly, being a responsible investor into Pulse Chain core coins. It's been a very entertaining show since launch. Stay safe, everyone. And Hex Monkey with the 1999 super chat. Thanks. For any doubters, Maddie's integrity is solid. He's been grinding and innovating for the community for 4 straight years. You know, another point that I'll make is I invented a way to undo a hack. And that technology is in some ways for several purposes better than Gnosis Safe, like for inheritance. But I haven't gotten anybody to use it because people don't want to participate in that, like off the bat. I guess people don't want to learn, or the incentives aren't right. You know, you can't get Bitcoin miners to burn tons of electricity if you don't have the incentives right. And so that's, I think, another reason why I'm interested in this. So this is kind of showing what smart vaults can do in a way that not everybody's seen yet. And it's certainly the case that people who've been free claiming that they might get an airdrop of something, and that might also incentivize people to learn how to be able to undo a hack by setting up a second seed phrase. That's a smart contract that really I think could change the game for a lot of people.
So let me just say, you know, like I ain't gonna rug anybody. I think his integrity is of the highest of chords, and yeah. But with that said, Maddie, I don't know. I just don't understand why you're launching a coin other than,
I didn't launch it.
well, you launched the pool, and now you're launching the tweet that's sending it flying.
Do you,
in my opinion,
do you not like it when people use their freedom to transact on the internet and sign crypto transactions?
I just think that people should be focused, and this is, Maddie coin is probably not where people should focus their attention or their economic energy.
I think if you're staked for a lot of years and you buy $1 worth, or you do the free claim, I think that that's a really cool way to motivate yourself to learn something new, like how to undo a hack with a second seed phrase, how to work with a smart vault, how to, you know, click buttons in DeFi. Like that's part of what makes you a responsible long-term holder of anything that's not staked. I mean, is making it so that people can't hack it. That's like, you have the Mars Stealer. Do you think in 5 years from now that the Mars Stealer virus that gets on people's computers and hacks their MetaMask, do you think that that's something that's going to get better over time? Well, no, I think as self-custody people, we need to do better. We need to use better technology.
No, I have no problems with your time pays me. I think that's a wonderful thing. I think it's actually really good.
Thanks.
You know, I think it's actually a really incredible invention for blockchain. It doesn't get enough use, but yeah, I don't know. I just think when everyone launches a coin, it's just like, what's the point?
I mean,
yeah,
we can
just went up 10x or whatever, but you know, people are getting in a 40% slippage. It's like, you know,
well,
you got.
But was that an opportunity for people to learn how? There's way more people who are going to watch this stream that are going to learn how to not do that themselves in the future with their core bags and with everything else. So I think it's a teachable moment for sure. And I like that you're disagreeing with me. I think it greatly adds to the show. So all of your concerns, I think, are valid and are what other people are going to be thinking, right? There's people who are thinking like, you know, go Maddie. And then there's people who are like, wait a second, like what, you know, how does this fit into the, you know, being the priest in the temple who's defending Hex. So those are all valid questions. A shout out to Funding Jim, who started this experiment in the first place. He said, I'm catching up on this. Cool. And I'm looking forward to seeing him here in Austin, Texas for consensus. It's going to be going on Thursday and Friday mostly. Frank, what's going on? Good to see you. Yeah, the market cap is gonna look a little weird because of those 369 million tokens, you know, that started off. How else? So McSlam in here, who was on the voice chat last night when I was driving. Shout out to you. Says, how else is Maddie supposed to get traction for his contract service without creating some incentive? Yeah, so freedom to transact, King Daniel. I think we need all of these different attitudes towards tokens that are not RH tickers. This is not an RH ticker, and so it's something that isn't going to bring everybody together. Hopefully it brings together, hopefully it adds something, whether it's people who are not buying and they're learning something because they're learning how liquidity works. They're learning how to get the best deal on order execution. These are things that, like, you know, a centralized exchange isn't going to teach you. This is something that you don't even have to participate. All you have to do is watch as everybody else learns their lesson, for better or worse. Wait till Maddie gets on Mario Spaces. Oh man, skyrocket. Yeah, that'll be interesting. The guy, I was on there today. They had me on there about metaverse. I don't know anything about metaverse. But they were talking about, yeah, normally I'm on there for meme coins. They got me on there a couple more times later this week for that. But somebody says, I agree with Brisology. That body mechanic, the focus will always be core coins. It ain't us degens and token builders wrecking the chart right now. There you go. Will this lower the cost of hamburgers? That is the question at hand. Best show ever. Thanks, guys. McSlammin says, I also respect Brisology's perspective on everything except EHEX. Ooh, triggered. Triggered.
Richard Hart stands with me. That's all I'll say. You can go buy your EHEX. And that's okay. So Maddie kind of sort of launches a coin.
I would say creates a liquidity pool that starts an interesting experiment and controversial experiment in true DeFi. Force for good. Trigger alert. EHEX has been mentioned.
Triggered.
We've got 140 watching on YouTube and 763 bots paying us service on Twitter. And one person watching on Twitch. Shout out to you. The true Twitch fan. Brisology, when I do these Twitter spaces where anybody can come up and talk, and there's people who have never talked before, sometimes they say that they're a fan of you.
What? Get out of here.
I'm serious. There, like you
got
have
everyone in the chat hating on me.
You have
Someone
fans.
said they liked me.
Seriously. There have been people who have been following along for years, 114 weeks. And Brisology, you've been here since the beginning.
Have I?
Of the show, haven't you? Like the first 4 episodes, I think, were K for K and David Feeder and myself, and then you and ChrispyMan joined, and you guys have been, I think, going for 110 episodes.
Nice.
David, fan of Brisology. Congrats.
I've hung out with David Morales. I hung out with him in New York. We went and saw the World Trade Tower.
Respect. Crispy is he's tending to his dog as he does every week. And you know, ChrispyMan is probably one of the people in the community that knows the most, along with Axis Alive, about providing honest liquidity and you know, understanding the inner mechanics of DeFi. It looks like on chain that the liquidity came from sacrifices, which were not donations, but there you go. When I ask for donations, I'm really clear. Like, hey, donate for these Twitter badges. And then I say, like, I'm not profiting from this. And then
I'm gonna tell you the truth,
yeah.
Maddie. I'm just pissed off that you front ran me because I am launching my own coin next week. And I can't believe you just stole all the liquidity that was going to go into my coin.
Maybe, yeah, who knows? Maybe yours will do even better. I mean, it's a 25-cent stablecoin, right?
So, in other news, Ethereum hit $3,900. Then it kind of pulled back a little bit. That's kind of exciting.
How far did it get down in this most recent dip? 35, 3,300.
You know, no, I'm not 100% sure. But maybe one of you guys can tell me. Like, I know about the 150,000 Ethereum that Richard bought around $4,000 each, but I've been hearing people say 170,000 now. Do you guys have any idea where that extra 20,000 came from?
100. That's a good question. I'm not sure. Oh, it went all the way down to 2,850. Wow. Yeah, we were talking about the OA bags last week, and I had misremembered. I thought that the OA bags bought Ethereum, you know, in the hundreds of millions of dollars for like 35 to 38,000. But you guys corrected me that it was like $4,000 was the break even there. So that's relevant to like us understanding how good of a deal the OA is getting on things out there.
Body mechanic seems a little upset with me. He seems to think creating shit coins left and right. And I'm not saying your coin's a shit coin. It's kind of a shit coin. Anyway.
Whoa. It is.
But you know, he's saying making shit coins is breathing life into a chain. It's like, okay.
Yeah, it's a great conversation though, isn't it, Chris? Because we could talk about this for a long time and never come to any conclusion, because chicken or the egg, why do we have blockchain? right? This is where you get to the point. RG3 helped me get to this point in my head that this is not about making money, quote unquote, even though that's how everybody gets attracted to it. I'm assuming most people. There are probably a few that are like, I like the technology, and I like the freedom. But, generally, I think most of us, to be honest, right, saw big prices and were like, wow, this is great. But what goes on in crypto? We get tokens, people buy and sell, they speculate. What's speculation? It's gambling. How do you like make things better within that? We try to add utility. Is it really utility in the fact that that I'm taking a token, I'm putting it in this pot and I'm locking it up and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, in some people's mind, that's utility, right? But where you really start jumping the shark is when this starts crossing over into this is about providing community. It's about entertainment. It's about making a movement. And that's kind of, I don't know, it took me a long time to come to that conclusion for myself that it's not just, of course, there's value and there's money, but it's not just about that. It's more, in fact, probably it's invaluable. I can't put a price tag on being part of this community. Right. So,
Absolutely.
anyways, I think there's other things that we're really creating now that have nothing to do with the value. But at the same time, when you launch a token, and people are buying and selling it, they're gambling on it, right? I'm just saying straight up meme. I mean, we see 200 of them a day or whatever coming out. So.
Yeah, I think that there are people who have all kinds of time frames, and it particularly interests me that this community is not only short time frames. This community is provably longer than Bitcoin, than Ethereum. When you look on Coinbase, coins that are even set, they're like in with the establishment enough to even get listed on Coinbase, they have an average holding time of like days. Not even like hundreds of days, just like days or tens of days. Like typically people are only holding tokens for like 10 days to like 30 days on average. In Hex, the average staking length is 7 years. That's incredible. That's provably different than every other community. And so, yeah, I think it does reflect a difference in our community. I think that's why people are here after the price went up so much and went down so much. There's still a core group of people here. Brisology, what is your token going to be called?
Biz with Briz.
I don't know. Brisology.
Salted OG. Oh man, now that'll come up tomorrow.
Yeah, Brisology will be it, all right?
I was looking at the chat. I guess you guys are pretty active. I walked away for a little bit.
You guys can come pour all your money into Brisology. No expectations. And no, I'm not drunk. It's just the way I talk.
Crispy, I was speaking of community. I was telling Brisology that I got to speak to people who have never spoken before in the community when I was on Twitter Spaces driving. I did like 7 hours last week on the way from Austin, Texas to Illinois. And then when I was driving back to Austin, Texas, I did about 2 hours yesterday. And that was really fascinating. To hear from people I have never heard from before. And many of them were huge fans of this show. And they sent their best regards to you guys. You guys have been here with me for over 100 episodes. So we've got a lot of people watching who appreciate the consistency and the alpha, so to speak. And speaking of which, actually, it was somebody who's in the chat now. McSlammin, You guys know him?
McSlammin'.
So,
McSlammin' slamming.
so I think he and I have probably talked before over the years, but he came onto the Twitter Spaces last night and said, "Hey, Maddie, remember when you said that Future Us invented a way to like fix the gas fees on eHex? Can you tell us more about that?" And do you guys want to hear my short story on this?
Yeah.
Could one of you, like, just to set up the story, could you explain like what I mean by like a gas issue on eHex?
Go ahead, Brish. You got this.
Sure. Basically, Ethereum got very expensive, and they cranked up the S load, and with those two things combined, it just made unstaking Hex almost impossible. It's going to cost you $100 to take out like $10. So it's just you're just throwing $90 down the drain for no good reason. And it got Richard in such a mood, he invented the pulse chain. So that's and then Ethereum was really high for a long time, and just very recently it came down in a reasonable value to where you can end stake a couple things, but it's still pretty high. So there we are.
Perfect. And I'm just sending Gary the link on Twitter because he said he wants to hop on. So yeah, perfectly. Brisology, Vitalik and crew, they raised the S load by like 12.5x, and that that made it way more expensive to do the calculation that's needed every time you end a hex stake. The blockchain, the Ethereum blockchain, has to go back through every single day and figure out what your bonuses were. And that's how the smart contract is written. And so it's really funny to me because last week before I came on the show, there was a family member, a loved one of mine that like had to go to the ER, and it turned out that everything was fine, thankfully. But when I was like, when like all that was taken care of, I didn't have a whole lot of time before I started the show with you guys. And so I quickly read like 30 messages that Future Us, my developer and somebody who's come on a Game Theory Gang before, Quant Gang and Game Theory Gang. So he had messaged me like a bunch of like 30 messages, and I quickly read it, and I thought that he said he had come up with a solution to the eHex S-load problem, and it turns out that he hadn't, but he heard me talking about it on the show. I swear to God, in the middle of the night, he wakes up with a solution. So this is like really strange to me how inventions happen and stuff, but that's like a typical example of how him and I like kind of oddly like,
The only solution I can think of is just airdropping a new coin in place.
Yeah. So I mean, somebody. So this is just like brainstorming. This is something that like we've talked about for years. Like what's a good way to like save eHex? Even with pHex, that's still a value. Like because, and we always knew that Ethereum might lower their fees. So like if there was a way to run a smart contract to do that,
I'm not really strongly in favor of creating yet another copy like that. But this is DeFi, so people do what they want. But we had something launched today, Liquid Hex from our friend Ben.
Oh wow!
Sierra, and it targets all of eHex. You have to go look them up and get the information, but it targets eHex stakes. And if you were a eHex staker and are an eHex staker, you can claim Liquid Hex on Pulse. But I think there's a limit to how many more of these we can have, right?
Probably. Yeah, and I can't tell you whether this solution works in the wild or if like it's good to split that economic energy. I think it would be up to like Richard and people who would actually write the code to be the ones to like take the idea and then decide whether to promote it in the community or not. I want to say hey to Gary, who just hopped on. Welcome.
Hey, now.
Looks like you're in an airport.
Yeah, I'll come on and off mic just as far as background and stuff like that. But someone sent me a link and said this was going on. I'm on my way to Consensus. I know that you're already there. I think that there are other from the community that are there, like Kurkowski, and I think at the last minute, Crypto Coffee is going to be there as well. So that's the goal. And I was listening to maybe the first 45 minutes at double speed of your stream to try and catch up before coming on. Again, great experiment. I think it's an experiment. Like, we do not know anything about like market forces, what happens, where things go. We have speculated for all of our time, 5-6 years, about like Hex, Pulse Chain, PulseX, all these mainstream things, because they get commentary from a large audience of participants, from Richard, or from, you know, guidance as far as like government permissions to transact, or permissions to sign, and what can you and can't you do. Like, I think that that's an interesting experiment that's gone on. And if people do recall, you know, you're going to get hate. You're going to get hate from people, and maybe not hate, but you'll get pushback from even people on the panel that say, oh no, you should get 85% APY on the thing that already exists. You're diluting the buying power. You're diluting the marketing. You know, I've heard that. All of us have heard that for a long time. And constantly rearranging furniture in the same ecosystem doesn't really motivate me anymore. So my only motivation is about the 9 people that are not inside of this ecosystem, that are not inside of cryptocurrency. The reason I'm going to
but isn't launching these coins like moving the furniture?
No, well, so if you recall, and I think you did make a comment earlier in the stream, what I did was I took my own money and I paired it with coins that I created as a homage, honestly, of respect at that time for the 33 people that were making content pretty regularly about our ecosystem. And we had a brand new blockchain that had almost no history since the fork. And I wanted to memorialize these people because I respected them. So I created Bruce token, I created Maddie token. I made 369
I'm sorry,
million,
Gary. You said
369,000.
you're not interested in rearranging their furniture, but aren't launching these coins just like rearranging the furniture? You're just taking money out from one pool,
wait a minute. Let me answer the full thread. The full thread is there's also a group of people that are very loud, proud, excited about a different Reed's Law community onside this chain. And that originated from the same story. Too Spooky created HOA because of my stream talking about pairing $10 worth of liquidity with the token I just generated on GoPulse. He accidentally said, or someone misheard him, and he said Hex origin address, but someone heard Hex orange address. And he has said on streams, and he said in Twitter spaces, this is where that came from. $6 worth of liquidity was paired with a supply that he created. Then there was adoption, if you want to call it adoption, from other people. Orange GUI, Bullish, and the whole community around NFTs and all the stuff that they have been doing for quite some time, since my stream, honestly. So it's interesting that the value of Ethereum, to me, is not Ethereum. There's a DEX called Uniswap. There's a L1 called Ethereum.
So you do like rearranging the furniture?
No, human beings are going to say the internet is cat videos. They're going to say that it's useful to educate people on how to rebuild a car engine. So I'm not trying to put a limit on what YouTube is, or how the internet uses YouTube. And I think it's interesting as an experiment. It's just interesting because I've seen a lot of supply actually, when a token gets launched, gets sniped by a extraction bot. You can see the top traders.
Correct.
And often that is waiting for the contract address. And it's interesting that this was dead token that was basically a year old or something like that, that sat unmoved inside of a wallet with no interest in marketing. And it wasn't even on Dex Screener because nothing had traded on it for like a year. And so, donating it, giving away $10 to somebody that's been doing streams for years, didn't matter to me. Like I already thought of the $300 as lost money anyway. So I think it's just interesting. That's all I'm leaving it at. I'm not saying, and I don't think Maddie is, or Briss definitely isn't, and nobody is saying, go buy this token. And yet people are buying this token. I don't know why people are doing it, but like explaining that you can get 85% more APY because of a smart contract doesn't really, it rings hollow to me now. It's all about
No. You
coming
misunderstood
into
what
the
I
chain.
said. Maddie said he had a friend that was only on centralized exchanges.
And he
And he
had
said,
DeFi.
then
because he
wait,
had-
wait,
he
wait,
had
wait, wait,
Hex.
wait,
He had
wait,
Hex.
wait, wait,
Don't say it was only on
wait,
he had Hex.
wait.
Brisology,
Stay
please pay respect to our guest, and
Well,
you can
if
still
you
make
could
your
respect
point.
me and not cut me off while I'm talking, all right?
Okay.
So Maddie
So, say a
said,
fact,
so
though.
all right,
Was he
let me
only
start
on central
over again
exchanges?
so we can get on the same page.
Great.
Maddie said he had a friend that was only on centralized exchanges. And
Like
now
with his
he-
recent
now he said
activity,
his
even
friend
though
only
he has
came on
long-term
to
hex stakes.
DeFi because he wanted to buy some Maddie coin.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, he's
clarify. Does he have Hex or does he not? Does he have
he
stakes or
does
does
have
he not?
long-term hex stakes, and he's a
just
friend
clear.
of mine for 21 years. We've been good friends. So yeah,
So
of course he
my
wanted to
point
participate
was-
in what I was doing.
Was the lure of like 85% APR not enough to get someone onto DeFi?
Well,
Like
I
he was
can't
like,
answer that for everybody, but I can
85%.
tell you that.
I don't know about that, but Maddie coin, I need to give me some of that.
Well, he already has.
So
Hex.
wait, Briss, be honest. Do you own any PLS? Do you own any?
Yes, I do.
Do you own more than you can actually commit as far as transactions yourself? Do you have more supply than you could possibly spend?
I don't.
Honestly,
What do you mean?
if you committed a transaction, let's say one transaction an hour for the rest of your lifetime, could you spend all of your PLS?
Probably.
Okay, so you're not very invested in speculation that your supply will be worth a lot more in the future. You're really just buying PLS for the fact that you can spend it as a transaction gas cost. So if you were to buy all of the gas you're ever going to use in your car and you just had it stored at your house, you'd be fine with that because you're not really speculating on the value of gas. You're speculating on the utility of gas. Is that right?
Yeah, probably.
Okay, so it's very attractive to you and I both that there's an 85% APY where you would have more supply in the future that is still valued at $1 or $20 peg to stable, whatever you want to say the value of a hex is. Having 85% APY is attractive because you think of it as free extra on top of the supply that you need. Correct?
I don't know. Your math is kind of going over my head. What's your point?
My point is people are going to speculate and they're going to undervalue things and they're going to overvalue things as long as there's been humans. And it's going to continue in DeFi. People are going to undervalue Maddie and they're going to overvalue Maddie and they're going to look at the chart and say, look, it's going down. And they're going to say, here's an opportunity. Or they're going to say, it's going to go down forever because obviously $88,000 isn't a lot and they don't have supply to sell down the price. Like, it's just interesting. That's all I'm saying is $6 paired was HOA. And now there's all these other tokens that are paired with each other, interlinked with each other. And there's a community that obviously thrives with their value of their use of the internet DeFi system of cryptocurrency. And I think it's interesting. Hex is an experiment. Pulse is an experiment. PulseX is an experiment. Ink is an experiment. Everything that you like, I think, as far as RH tokens, is experimental. And so is this. This is experimental. People are going to speculate. They're going to love it. They're going to hate it. They're going to shit talk Maddie. They're going to love you. They're going to shit talk you. And they're going to love Maddie. That's just human beings that we have observed for the 7 years we've been here, man.
Yeah. I think for one, I didn't know the origin of HOA was linked to the experiment that you started, Gary. So that it makes it even more interesting to me. You really created a genesis of a lot of a lot of things. So
accidentally, I was throwing away
really
$300.
Cool.
I have super chatted people $500. So like this experiment, if it's not even like supply, like if Russ wants all the supply, I'll send all the supply. It sits in a publicly doxed. It sits in a publicly
I don't
doxed
want
address.
it.
Do you want it sent to a
You
burnt address?
you should get
I
it. You
don't
should get it, and
want
then you
it.
can burn it.
Do you want it
You
sent
could
to a
have like
burnt
a burning
address?
ceremony.
Dude,
Yeah.
it's your coins. Do whatever you
No,
want with them.
I'm willing to give you $10 is what I'm saying. Do you
I
want
don't
$10?
want it.
We have
Do you
a
want
we
it
have a
burned?
super chat. We have a super chat, and King Daniel for $20 says, "Thanks for all you do, Maddie. Brisology can call his token brisket."
Like it, barbecue.
That's a funny name.
Hey, another side comment on the whole Tang Gang. You know, I think from my numbers, and it might be even higher than this, on paper, that ecosystem has grown to over $9 million worth of liquidity. Now, granted, you could slice and dice that up and say, well, not all that's Pulse or PulseX or, you know, an E-stable, but I mean, it's really grown, you know, from those nuggets right in the beginning. So,
Well, it's grown from activity. Maddie, until this announcement today, didn't grow because nobody talked about it. I didn't talk about it.
100%.
I made a stream, but HOA got talked about. HOA attracted other people. Other people decided to pair their own liquidity, whether it's in stable or other tokens. And now they have this yield narrative that they're using 9mm and making 2% or whatever their narratives are. I am simply saying that the internet has a lot of uses to it. And some of it is foolish and stupid, and I don't appreciate it. And that my boomer ass can't understand a lot of the culture that's on the internet. But there's a lot of people using it. And I think that it's interesting that if we want adoption in DeFi to say comic books are stupid, baseball cards are dumb, Pokemon are for people that are still locked in their teens, whatever it is. Like us shit talking is horrible. If people want to make it,
well,
make it. If Maddie wants to make it,
yeah.
I support that it's being made. Like that's the general theme I have.
Thank you.
Well, I'm still bought in. So I have a little bit of it's the right word, call it schizophrenia, but split view on things because I'm still very strongly in favor of hex, staking hex, that is the methodology, that is the way, right? And all the rules that come along with that. But that does not, it's okay if I only have that opinion and I don't do anything else. It's not okay that everyone has that opinion because then Pulse Chain's a failure. Because we need people to be into Pulse Chain to provide that entertainment, that community, and yes, to do the transfer of value as unsightly as that is. But I mean, that's how it goes, right? We need people to be part of the chain. Yeah. So, anyways, I have a conflict in my head. I call it wearing different hats. I got to put my different hat on, you know, because otherwise I just be in hex.
I got a question. I'll step down to just listen to the rest of the stream. My question, I thought it was an interesting comment that Maddie made, and I didn't. Hang on a second.
The chat is the chat's interested in both sides of people's opinions, it looks like.
So sorry about the background announcement. I'll try to be quick. So I thought it was interesting when you said about peg to $20 or peg to $5. You have different denomination if you keep physical bills in your pocket, and it's not just the dollar. And so I thought it was interesting that Maddie had said something about, you know, the narrative around a stable coin has been pegged to $1. Obviously, it has different purchasing power in different fiats around the world, but like this dollar dominance in our mind about like one unit buys a certain amount because we're Americans and we use the dollar. I think that that's interesting that he had said something about why not a $20 peg? Why not a $5 peg? And obviously, there's always speculation about all the PEI stuff and all the groups around Tropa and all that stuff. But like the idea, I thought it was just interesting that I've been in crypto space all this time, and it's always been it's pegged to a dollar because it's USDC, or it's pegged to a dollar because it's Tether or DAI or whatever, or liquidity pairs. So I thought that was an interesting comment. If you guys go back to that topic, but I thought that was cool.
Thank you. Yeah, that's exactly why I brought it up was, because of how it struck me when I realized that we're not thinking in all the different denominations that we have in the real world. When I look in my wallet, I don't have a lot of $1 bills. I have $20 bills. I mean, that's like just, it's depends on your personal preference and how much you use digital cash and stuff like that versus physical cash. But yeah, it also struck me, you know, that the price of Hex went up so much, it went up 10,000x. And I could have said, what if, you know, what if Matty Coin was designed to do 10,000x? But to me, I would much rather the market choose for it to be $20 instead of to be up at $10,000 and then go back to 100. That just seems way better to me for people's kind of like price trauma, if you will. And so yeah, that's why like the whole meme idea of like, you know, maybe it does a 20x and just stays there is so interesting to me, because also maybe you get the less greedy people participating, or if you get sideways action, maybe that's good for the people holding LP or for some other like aspect of, yeah, just going to change people's thinking about like, oh, we can have a stablecoin at $1. Why can't we have a stablecoin at $20?
I think that that's been part of the marketing of Bitcoin since its origin. Was, I'm sure that back in 2009 or whatever, they didn't say a Bitcoin is $1 million. You know, Bitcoin's going to hit $1 million. I'm sure that that wasn't like the common conversation when 10,000 Bitcoin was 2 pizzas, you know, or whatever the history has been. I think that it has always levered up. And again, I don't think that that's the
Super chat from ML for $20. Gary, if you find it interesting how coins have been paired together and how LP has grown, then I suggest you and Sunny Day have a friendly chat. Cheers. Thanks for the super chat.
Yeah, and again, so just on the topic again on the stablecoin, I think it's interesting as far as stablecoins simply because, like you said, unit bias, your unit bias. I'm sorry, man, in the background.
You know, another thing about a 20 versus a $1 bill, my girlfriend's grandfather is in his late 80s, and he says that in his lifetime, the cost of things has gone up 10 to 20x. That's been the effect of inflation over a full lifetime. If we think of ourselves living that long into our 80s and 90s with better health technology in the future, I think that, yeah, like it is more memeable to say you have a $20 stablecoin today than you have a $1 stablecoin, because being stable at $1 is really just down forever if it's pegged to the USD. But in this case, you have something that's pegged to Pulse X, which is deflationary, and so that is the opposite of being pegged to something that is inflationary, which is another reason why it made sense, even though I knew that the router, basically like the Pateus router and like other stuff would like not treat it well at first. It made sense still to pair with PulseX instead of Pulse because of that deflationary nature.
Yeah, that's interesting. And again, we talk about for many years about like Hart's law and like pairs and what's the effect in a V2 versus a V3 or a balancer. Yeah, it's just it's an interesting experiment.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, yeah, I can't thank you enough for hopping on and for just, you know, kicking this off in the first place. You and I had no idea what would come of the experiment that you started. And I hope that other people click buttons in DeFi to try to understand more deeply what's possible and what can be created.
Cool. I'll see you hopefully tomorrow.
Yeah.
I think there's some dinner plans, and I should be there by like noon on the floor. And then, like I said, I'm trying as best as we can to synergize with Valuetainment and the Minex stuff. We're doing really well with that leaderboard. There is a physician that's really ahead of us, but we're trying to knock them out. And then I'm just going to basically go to like booth to booth, talking Valuetainment, Minex, and PulseChain. Yeah, that's my whole goal while there.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'll be working the crowd and meeting new people to let them know about Hex and PulseChain. I've got things to hand out to new people that I meet. And yeah, looking forward to crossing paths with you tomorrow, Gary.
Bye, Gary. Good luck.
Take care. Thanks. Safe travels.
Wah, wah, wah. So Maddie,
Mick Slammin is joking about pegging to silver, which is unknown how that would happen.
pegging it.
But if it's a meme we're talking, then yeah, silver peg all the way.
So if you pull up my screen, I'll show you that Maddie hit the top 10 of my tracked APYs. So make this guy a little bit bigger. These are the top 10 that I'm tracking. You can see Maddie is down there at $279,000 worth of volume.
Whoa.
Over $344,000 worth of liquidity, and spot, meaning, you know, as of the moment, the rate is about 65% APY.
Which line are we looking at? The second from the bottom there? Okay.
Yeah, the one that says Maddie. Yeah, I probably should highlight it. Maybe I can do that on the screen. How's that?
Yeah, that's
Much
interesting that yeah, starting with 100% kind of liquidity in the sense of coins that are circulating, and yeah, then you see the volume is 279K, which started, you know, from 88 times 2, I guess, is the liquidity there, because there was $88,000 worth of PulseX, and then there was 88,000 Maddie tokens, and then the liquidity is up to 344K.
Yeah, it's about double the LP.
Crazy. And that's
pretty
been
interesting.
just in the past 2 hours.
Yeah, yeah. And just, you know, Gary mentioned it. There are a couple things going on, but one of the things that's going on is you see DWB there, and HOA and RAT. Those are all Tangang related, I believe. So these guys have been really good at figuring out how to drive routing. So that's been going on. Up at the top, and again, I'm not saying go buy any of these things. I'm just looking at what the APYs are because this is interesting to me. You've got LUSD, which is the P version of LUSD, which is a stable coin. Huge amount of it, you know, minted on Pulse Chain like trillions, but it has it's been dominant the last week, you know, with lots and lots of activity and volume. And so when I see something like you know, like a V2 pair doing 252% APY, and that's not like just today, it's like every day I'm seeing 200%, something like that. There's something going on there. Now, what is going on? I don't know, man. Maybe somebody can tell us. The theory is it's tied back to again to the possibility of PRC20s, you know, going to you know, going to parity.
And LUSD is the Pulse Chain copy of a stable coin similar to DAI, but like a different starting point.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah, correct. That's my understanding.
Okay.
PL,
That's interesting.
USD.
And
Yeah, pretty cool.
There are some stable coins that were copied over. And by copy, I mean like it had the same ticker and the same contract address, but it had a fraction of the value, and that value swings around wildly, unlike the stablecoin that it originated from. But like, it's my understanding that there's kind of like a relationship between PDAI and like PUSDC that maybe doesn't apply necessarily in like an automated market maker type of way, or like a contract way, to LUSD. Is that correct? But like LUSD is like now having a run because people are still interested in the copy of a stablecoin.
Yeah, I can't answer for you, you know, technically how they're all connected or not connected. But yes, my understanding is that they're separate. And Optimality in the chat saying that LUSD is liquidity on ETH. So maybe that's what that is. I didn't pull up the name.
Oh, so it does. So that's kind of like liquid loans, a token, right? Like that would be the equivalent
if that was the case. Yeah.
It would be like if USDL was forked onto another chain and wasn't redeemable 1-for-1, and people were speculating on the value of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
So
Cool.
that was pretty
I learned
interesting.
something.
And here's something else to show people that maybe haven't seen it. This is, of course, over on my website, but take a look at this pie chart. I mean, this makes sense to me. Like, but I don't think I could have answered the question. Like, if you said, well, just how much is going through what? Because we talk so much about these different things happening on Pulse Chain. Man, V1 PulseX is just a monster. It's
so
just
for
it's
people
just a
listening,
monster.
along only, on the screen now there's a pie graph, and it shows what looks to be the volume of the different decentralized exchanges, the proportion of volume that each one has, comparing PulseX version 1, which that has the greatest share. Maybe it
Yeah, this is my tracked volume for the day. So 10 million.
for the day.
Yeah, 10 million.
Which is
on V1.
65%.
Nearly, yeah.
And remember, V1 that has ink on it. Ink rewards are paid out to people who do a V1 liquidity, but there are no trading fees that go to the LP providers. Whereas V2, which here has 16% of the share of volume, those represent coins that are not incentivized by the Master Chef contract, the OA, whatever you want to call it. Those are pairs that are more likely to be, generating trading fees and not being part of like the core RH assets, or focusing more on the trading fees than the ink, because you don't get any ink for using PulseX V2.
Yeah, but notably, there are some entities that like to take their LP and put it in V1 and even burn it. And so even though they're not part of the farm, because it's not tokens that earn, off the farm, so there are no fees. All it does is burn. An example of that is the 20 plus million worth of LP. It's out there between PDI and Tropa.
Okay,
which is another big one. That's all V1. So nobody's getting those fees, not even the pair. It's just all, those are going to burn 100%.
And if people didn't put it into the V1 liquidity, then it wouldn't be taking those trading fees and burning them instead of giving them to the LP providers. And so that is different game theory.
Yeah, it's different because a lot of us have burned V2 liquidity. So the pair just gets fatter and bigger. It's good for scarcity. And I guess supposedly, I guess in one way it's good for scarcity, but the bigger it gets, the more stable the price is, which is a whole nother conversation to have another time. But there's just so much LP out there that's just growing and growing. But I think what threw me back was I thought that the numbers for 9mm and PulseX V2 would have been higher as compared to V1. I just didn't understand the sheer magnitude of that. And so we look at 9mm, and these are my numbers, so they can come up with different ones, I'm sure. These are just the track pairs I'm looking at, but it gives me a ratio to understand what's happening. 7% over 9mm, 11% at 9-inch, PulseX V2 at 16% versus V1, and it's just a monster. And so for those people who are really super interested in liquidity, the V3 tools, yes, I get it. I understand the fees in V2, and I guess it always depends. I mean, it's necessary to do V2, if you're trying to be a liquidity provider versus V3. But if you're looking for experts on that, go check out the Tangang and what they're doing with their liquidity, because they're really locking some stuff in and getting some really good numbers.
Right on. Yeah, that's very interesting.
Another couple things you may not know. Let me throw this at you. I don't know what this means to us, but let's go look and see. I'm just going to go to my track pairs real quick. And probably the best way to show this to you, I'm just going to go over to my filter. And I want to look at DEX IDs and what we have out there. I don't know if this is big enough for you guys to see on the right-hand side, so I'll make it bigger. This is more information that I didn't know. All right, so I have contracts out there that this is all from Dex Screener, and you can see these 0x contract numbers. So those are likely coming from 9 inches V3. And then there's some likely things that I know about, like 9-inch, 9mm. But until I pulled the data, I didn't know we had a DEX running on Pulse Chain called DEX Top. Now, are there a lot of pairs? I only see about 10 pairs that I would be interested in, but I know it was there. There's also another, and some of these could be forks, right? There's another one that's called, if I go to put the filter on that, you can see I've got $8,500 in liquidity, probably not big enough for everybody to see, but for the DEX Top. And then there's another DEX out there called Easy Swap. Only about $5,000 worth of liquidity. But another one called Pulse Rate. Didn't know that was running almost $100,000 worth of liquidity. Anyways, there's a lot of things going on in the system that maybe are under the covers, and maybe these are private, maybe they're just small efforts, just things I don't know about. Of course, we know about Spark Swap being out there, and I don't have a lot of track pairs for Spark Swap for what I'm looking at right at the moment, because I'm not pulling them all. But we've got that. We've got Sushi Swap, and our buddy Uniswap is out there on Pulse Chain. These are all Uniswap pairs that are up and running, that somebody in some cases actually went through the trouble of getting put up there.
Wow, interesting.
With some pretty high volumes going through them. And we, this is likely, maybe this is just because this LUSD WETH pair, and optimality, I mentioned that as well. Maybe this came over with a fork, and that's why it's there. I don't know. I haven't gone and done the research, but the fork of Uniswap is up there working, and there's $82,000 in volume. LUSD to WETH. We see EHEX and HEX trading, $12,000 worth of volume today. So yeah, it's given me an opportunity to find some of these, and then some of the guys and ladies listening may know these names, but I can't keep track of everything, so I don't know. And then there's another one called Velocimeter. Now, granted, this is tiny, but it's kind of intriguing to me that I don't know anything about any of these things, right? They're just up here, and people are putting liquidity out there, and things like Pitius are able to find it and, really go through and really work these things. So,
ChrispyMan, this is really helpful to see. This data that you've pulled from on-chain, is that something that people are able to see by going to hexfire.io, or is that?
Yeah, this is only members data, so I have it out there
cool.
because I'm pulling, so it's members only stuff. But I am sharing it when I can in the subscriber stuff, and I'll put it up on Twitter. But these are a lot of the things that I'm digging into, because I want to understand how the system's working, where the opportunities are, how to position for that stuff. There really are a lot of cool things happening on Pulse Chain.
Totally, yeah. And we got Abit in the chat here too, representing the Tang Gang. He had a question for you about implementing. You could implement how much TVL 9mm has compared to PulseX. He says 9mm has 5% of the PulseX TVL total value locked, but does 10 to 20% of PulseX volume. Great stream. Congrats, Maddie. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, I'd have to go look at the TVLs to see what's there, but I pulled the screen down. But here's the other part about this, right? And so I'm not sure what Abit. I don't know if Abit was talking about the same thing I'm thinking of, but here's the thing: is I put something in called speed, not the drug, but just a measurement. Where what I'm doing is I'm counting how many times liquidity turns in a day. And so that's volume divided by liquidity, and it gives you speed. That is another type of an indicator to really tell what's running really hot, right? When we were looking at the LUSD pair, that thing's turning 3 times a day, 4 times a day, meaning 3 times the liquidity. Now, what does that mean for the liquidity providers? It means that they're going to earn more fees for less capital investment. And I think in a similar fashion, Abit's trying to go after that with his comment as well, is that a 9mm, they have a lot less of the total value locked. And so when you do the ratios on that, and that's why I keep referring to the 10 gang, because they've really become pretty expert. And I'm sure Abit is too. And I don't know if he's officially 10 gang. But they've become really good at figuring out how to manage the V3s in order to produce much higher fees, right, through the volume. And so it's not the same thing. Sometimes when I look at pairs, you definitely have to put stuff up with PulseX on V2, because without it, it's kind of like you don't have a strong foundation, right? But beyond that, a lot of this V3 stuff can come in really handy, right? Because you can really have very tight. And you go watch Sloth, by the way. You know Sloth, Crypto Sloth. He's got a couple of free videos he put out talking about this topic, about how to set up V3 specifically.
And for people following along that don't know what V3 is, V3 is more similar to a limit order type of liquidity, where you're setting a one-sided price, versus V2 Uniswap liquidity is where you're providing equal sides of the trade and equal ratio. For example, Maddie and PulseX are paired in V2, so that means that people can take either side of the trade, given that they have the tokens. So I'm not sure if Abit is talking about like a specific token versus the entire DEX. And so that might be part of where the numbers would line up better.
Yeah, I think he's talking about the whole DEX. Okay. And my putting numbers out aren't to say these are specifically exactly the numbers. I'm just showing you the kind of the rough findings that I have. Hey, but going back to that V3 liquidity for everybody, if you hear my dog barking in the background?
It's not too bad.
Okay. I don't know why it's decided it's gonna bark right now. I don't know. But if you look at the way I understand it, when you look at a normal V2 position, right, you go from 0 to infinity. All right. And every price step in between is called a tick.
Okay.
And so when you put liquidity in, whatever those numbers work out to be, your value gets spread equally across all of the ticks. Right. So the most widest amount. And so that means you got little bits of liquidity everywhere. And so you only earn on the ticks that get crossed, the price crosses.
Okay.
Right. So you have a very small cross section of your value that actually gets hit, because it's got to be in those ticks, right? And so when you do V3, you're able to say, I don't want infinity and 0. I want to do a 10, just as an example, a 10% position where I'm 10% below the price or ratio and 10% above, right? Same dollar amount that you might have put in, but now it's all crunched in to however many ticks are within that 10% below and above. And so now you have relatively fat sticks of liquidity.
You have a greater share of the pool at those prices.
That
are able to be active or not active.
Yeah. And so for something that stays in range, right, within, ratio wise, that's really good, because it's just kind of like staying in the range. You just keep earning. But potentially, right, you go out of range and you end up with impermanent loss to one side. That's why it's a little dangerous to do. And when you see some of the people, and we do talk about We do talk a lot about mixed slamming. My dog wants to explain. We do talk, yeah, we do talk a lot about V3 and about getting out with liquidity, but you can actually kill the momentum of a drive up, of a token or support a token's price with V3 because, let's say you saw a Maddie token launch and you grabbed a whole bunch of it before anybody else did, and you put a cap on it.
Just talking about Somi coin.
Yeah, like Somi. You put a ceiling in there, or like BankX, right? BankX,
Right.
I mean, we can go look. I mean, I don't know if they got $15 worth of volume. They dropped that right on top so that the EHEX price doesn't even bother going in there. So you can actually bottle something up, or you could support it with V3 as well. Anyways, you do have to be careful.
That's incredibly important game theory in all of this liquidity providing, because we've seen BankX put up a V3 sell wall and it didn't get chewed through, and that led to the hex price potentially going down even further on EHEX. And then another perfect example is when the OA put up a sell wall on Hedron, and then there was a group of people that tried to eat through it whenever Richard was traveling in the United States. And so you saw Silver the Antidote and a group of people that actually broke through the sell wall that the OA had created on Hedron to create a price ceiling.
Yep.
But that was penetrated through. And I'm not sure what happened next in terms of different ratios of different tokens, but that there are fascinating examples of how providing V3 liquidity can create doom in the short term, or in some cases, create a huge rally in the case of the short term of Hedron. So yeah, the V3 story is particularly interesting. If Maddie token got to $20, or if PDAI got to $1, what would stop it from going higher? And how would the market react if there was, if the market was, or anybody was setting a ceiling, the market might not like that. So that's an idea that's kind of untested and matters. It matters what people decide to do with V3 liquidity. We saw that with BankX, kind of suppressing the price of EHEX. So there are these opposite examples of how how the market can react to V3 liquidity that are, I think, very important for us understanding the nature of DeFi, the nature of not having an investment bank that's setting the price of the stock market. This is very much in the hands of whoever is out there, clicking the buttons in DeFi. So there you go. But yeah, thanks for backing us up here with the data on how these things are trading and what types of dexes are seeing different kinds of volume. Crispy, I agree that I would not have guessed what the relative share of the market would be between those different dexes, because we hear more from some than the others. And it would be interesting if we had social analytics to see how many mentions PulseX gets versus the 9mm and Tangang and stuff like that, and to see how that overlays with the actual volume. Because this affects PulseX. This affects which in turn it influences Hex, what the performance is based on fees. I think that there's a direct relationship there with Hart's Law and everything, with how much PulseX is getting used, and then having other dexes that are taking a percentage of the routing volume. That's why Richard always wanted to make the point that PulseX would be the most liquid DEX. The reason why it's important to be the most liquid DEX, decentralized exchange, is because of the value proposition of earning trading fees as just a holder of PulseX. So it'll be interesting to see how those numbers evolve over time. Crispy, you're muted.
I turned it off because of the dog. The things I've been doing, I've really been digging into that. I'm super curious. I have my own little LP experiments that I'm doing, with different things. But yeah, there are some golden gems out there, things that you're able to set up. But all of this to me feels a lot like trading, which goes against one of the 10 commandments that I have, right? So when I'm wearing my hex hat, right, this does not apply. But when I'm wearing my pulse chain hat, I got to be like, well, what am I doing with this stuff, and what should I be looking at? And it takes a lot of time, a lot of effort. You got to be watching stuff. Probably the best advice I got was from a super big whale from Hex, who said, you know what, with liquidity position, you want to provide liquidity, that's fine. You can earn. Set it and forget it, V2. Come back every year and look at it, and if you want to provide it, because that is the closest thing to being, stake and chill. But that being said, I know people are interested, and I'm providing a service, so I'm going after the information too. So yeah.
Cool.
Anyways, just my 2 cents.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Christopher's asking, I feel like I'm missing something here. How is this thing relatable to onboarding the masses or improve the ecosystem price? I think I'm not making any promises with this token. I think that what we saw from the sacrifice was there was a lot of USD that bought PulseX. And so that is like an immediate benefit. Now, hey, it wasn't $1 million, but there was no value extracted from the sacrifice. All of the value was used to create LP. How many times has that happened in our ecosystem where the developers didn't have to get paid to do something? Maybe it happens with meme coins more often, but they don't start with 100% liquidity. So the thing that you may be missing here is this is a different type of launch than has happened before. And if it's, if it ends up being the case that the sacrifice list receives a fraction of the LP in vaults, then that also creates a unique condition where it takes at least a week for those LP tokens to come out of the time pays me vault. And so that creates a unique condition where the market can do price discovery before the holders are cheating. So yeah, just really technically specific types of experiments that are happening here. Most people who are new to crypto aren't going to understand all of the details of that, but that doesn't mean that new people can't participate. And I gave the example of one person who is way more interested in crypto, one of my friends, because they're playing along now. And there's 1,300 people who have done a free claim. They don't know what they're getting yet, but that also seems to be an example of how people are able to participate. And I'm trying to facilitate people self-custody, understanding the freedom to sign, clicking buttons in DeFi. You have to have Pulse to click buttons on Pulse chain. You have to, and it's the case for me that I got started in crypto with $20 of Ethereum and I forgot about it. Sometimes you get people involved and then it takes a while for them to become somebody who streams 185 weeks straight. But you have to start somewhere. So giving people the opportunity to free claim, that's, I think, the most clear way that I'm trying to facilitate people of all levels participating. At least if you have if you meet that criteria of like being able to create a new wallet. Why pair with PulseX? I described earlier that it's deflationary. It's the only of the RH tokens that's purely deflationary. Pulse chain or Pulse, the coin, is like Ethereum, where it can inflate and deflate based on like the amount of activity on chain. But PulseX is the only one that it has a constant deflationary pressure due to the buy and burn. And so that's why the pair was created with PulseX in this case.
Yeah, and there's some thought and theory that PulseX will potentially pump higher and dump further depending on the swings, right? So it's a little bit more of leverage play on Pulse.
I'm not sure what you're saying with struggled a bit playing with it, but if people are still questioning like how to free claim, I can drop the link here because I haven't officially said that that's over, and I want everybody to feel like they have a chance to participate for free.
So well, wasn't it just sending in your address
on Twitter? Yeah, okay. As a post under this thread or any of the 3 tweets that I made over the past 3 weeks.
So there's nothing else I needed to go do. I just
correct
put my address.
Yep, that's it.
I put Bruce's address.
Well, that's funny because I put your address.
I put your cat's address, man. Cat with butt.
That's right.
Super exciting.
I mean, the other thing that's happening in crypto this week is that we're starting to see more and more signs that the government the U.S. government has started to change their political winds when it comes to crypto. And I know everybody's been hearing really specific things on Twitter, but if we zoom out to the weekly perspective, I want to point out that the president had said that he was going to veto a pro-crypto bill. And then he issued a statement saying that he would not veto a pro-crypto bill. So that's a 180-degree change. That's going from 0 to 1 in favor of crypto. And then both the House and the Senate, they're both drafting bills and like approving them within themselves. And then they trade and they try to see what's the same between the House and the Senate bill. And then that's what ends up like being reproposed as the law. And so there has been the case where like a 500-page bill passed the House, and I'm not sure how long it was for the one in the Senate, but the House of Representatives, this is the one that doesn't just have 100 people in it. It's like 400 and something. They voted 2/3 in favor of a pro-crypto bill this past week.
And who's that again?
The House of Representatives,
which are the I think
so. There's the Senate and then there's the House of Representatives. So maybe I was
no, you got it. I'm just
misreferencing those. But
I'm just showing my ignorance from 8th grade.
Yeah, and so a 2/3 pro-crypto vote in the House, that means that there were lots of Democrats that were voting pro-crypto, and it's typically been that only the Republicans and only 50% of the representatives are pro-crypto, if that. And so we've seen this huge shift, and it might have been B-Roots and Gary and KG that went to the Trump dinner and got him talking about crypto. It might be that the analytics on Twitter are telling. See, now this is interesting because the Twitter is now the highest signal to noise social media in the history of the world at scale because of what Elon has done in the past year. The signal to noise ratio on Twitter didn't exist last election. And so the fact that, the Bitcoin halving was scheduled on an election year from the beginning back in 2008 by Satoshi, and the fact that Elon Musk has like advanced Twitter, I think it's very possible that the 50 million Americans that hold crypto, according to Coinbase, that they're being loud enough on Twitter that the AI stuff that's advising President Biden and Trump, that they're both seeing in their analytics that the crypto vote is going to be particularly important for them to remain or to get in power. And so I didn't expect this a month ago. I didn't think that crypto would suddenly become something that the politicians are supporting because it would make a difference in the election. So that's extremely notable.
Yeah, well, it's not just that, right? So it's a magic trick, right? There's a variety. There's probably 6 reasons at least that these things are suddenly appearing, and you don't know all about them. Some of them probably pretty good reasons, like altruistic, like really somebody wants something done. The rest of them probably not that. Probably more along the lines of, hey, let's make everybody think we do care, so we can go do what we need to do right now and get elected. You know. Or, hey, let me do this because I really like big money to support me. And this will make it easier for them to sell on everybody's heads in 2025, whatever. Pick your poison. We come up with a bunch of scenarios, right?
I want to hear from Brisology on the politics of crypto. Tobiwan is in the chat. We hope you're feeling better. I know that you had a migraine tonight. And couldn't make it, but Tobiwan says, so bummed I couldn't be on tonight. I'm about halfway through the catching up on 2x speed. Congrats to Maddie. Very interesting to see this play out. When do sacrificers get access to their PLP? The sacrificers were told that they would get nothing. They signed to say that. I think it would be really cool if they got airdropped into their vaults at some point, some of this PLP. And so that is something that people could look on chain and see when that would occur.
I would just say, go look at all the politicians that FTX was donating to. See how they're voting. They're all a bunch of, if you catch my drift.
What state are they from?
Democratic states.
The Democratic state.
Well, one of the more corrupt politicians, relatively speaking, is Maxine Waters that has lots of pictures with Sam Bankman-Fried and is anti-crypto now. Oddly,
one of the worst human beings on the planet.
I didn't know you knew her.
Yeah, she's my representative.
Well, maybe you can get her to change your mind about crypto.
Anyways, guys, I'm sorry, I gotta get going. Maddie, congrats on the launch of the coin. All you Maddykins, I hope you all get 1,000x return.
20x only, baby.
That's right,
guys. Think smart about where you put your money. All right, that's all I'm saying. Is you are being tested with these RH assets, and the more people that fall off the rocket, the better for me. I know, baby.
Amen.
And so,
Briz with cat.
Briz with cat. So, all right, guys.
I appreciate you.
We'll see you, Briz. Have a good night.
Have a good night. Yeah, McSlayman says SBF was anti-crypto too. LOL. Yeah, because he was running a centralized exchange that was promising people things that they weren't doing. Wow.
Really. Well, so much fun, Maddie. So much fun.
Crypto's wild. This is much more exciting than
Hey,
the
I think somebody's been
worst.
listening. I think somebody's been listening to my streams.
Oh yeah.
You know what I saw the other day? I saw that somebody, same wallet, I think. Maybe it was in the same day, maybe it wasn't multiples, but over 5 million hex staked on Pulse Chain for Quattro Cinco in one shot. That's pretty
Wow.
big. That's a pretty big commitment, 5 million. But to me, that's a big commitment. Other people, they'd be like, oh, that's only $50,000. I don't know. That's a lot to me. But, um, I'm still tracking the whole hex thing, that's that token where some of this started, but, um, where we stake and whatnot. And man, I feel like, I really want to be around in 15 years to be like, I told you so. I want to be sitting there and be like, everybody's like, oh man, can you imagine back in 2024, you could have bought a T-share for a couple $100, and I'm going to be like, yeah, they're $1 million now, and be like, whew. Um, so things are lining up pretty good. What I'm getting at is staking is down, at least long-term staking is down. It's been trending down. T-shares are trending down. T-shares that are out Quattro Cinco are now available. You can buy, well, you don't buy them, but you stake your hex and get T-shares. And man, it's just such an opportunity, I think, to dominate out there. If you're into the game of hex and you want more hex later in the future, which is separate from all this other stuff that we're doing, or that people are chasing and interested in.
Yeah. It it's really incredible that there's this core community of people, and I'm gonna keep going back to like the difference that I notice in the silent investors and the people that that I hear from on Twitter Spaces that are speaking for the first time, and they're long-term thinkers. They're DCAing into hex. They are paying their future selves, and it's really inspiring to me. I don't know what it is. It's so refreshing to hear people who are at the beginning of like their public speaking journey for hex, and it for me it's been a long time, and where I've been flying the same colors. And when you look at my Twitter, when you look at my Twitter badge, I chose hex. When I do the Twitter Spaces speaking engagements, I do that so that thousands and hundreds of thousands of people will see the hex logo next to my name. It's really really where everything started. It's the one that brought you to the dance. For me, way more than Bitcoin, even way more than Ethereum. And I think ChrispyMan may have like dropped off here, but yeah, I can reiterate what he was saying about this this community of people that continues to focus on hex, that continues to look out 15 years, that doesn't exist in any other crypto.
Sorry, launch went bad. I don't know what happened. I was just disappeared 1 second.
I really like your background change and the fact that you're back.
I went to the moon and back. See my little squirrel buddy?
Yeah.
It's my little red squirrel. So.
So people who are staking hex into the year 2039, such as yourself and the people you're seeing on chain that are doing it, the people I'm talking to in Twitter Spaces and meeting for the first time through voice. People who time lock hex for 10 years or more are getting it. They're paying a third of what it would cost for a T-share in the short term. So they're getting a great deal. And then at the same time, people who are staking for those extra 5 years up to the maximum of 15 aren't seeing anything in the number of their T-shares going up, or like the cost in hex terms of their T-share going down for staking 15 instead of 10. But they have the advantage of not having to restake at a higher rate later on. And that, when you look at a compound interest curve, that's like hidden alpha in the hex system. A lot of people staked for 10 years and they're going to be out after 5 to 10 years when they EES for the principal back or they serve the full time. But then the people who are going in now during a time when hex is not even the most popular coin amongst hexicans as much as it has been in the past, creates even more of an opportunity if you believe that hex will have the kind of extremely reflexive comeback that cryptos with staying power have, that cryptos with community like Bitcoin and Ethereum have done. We don't know if it's going to happen the same way, but I know a lot of people who believe.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that there's a possibility they're going to be super happy. Not only that, they'll be considered to be whales of the day or super whales. Particularly if they're doing the Quattro Cinco thing. You know, I'm older, right? So listen, I never planned to do 45 years of staking. Right. I mean, that's stretching probably the limits of how long I'll be around, right? And I hate to say that, but that's kind of like the truth. Maybe I get 30, you know, maybe I get 30, maybe there's two. But so I never really had thought of it that way. But for the younger folks who are involved, this is like, to me, this is like Apple, when Apple, the company stock, when I had the opportunity to buy it for $4. My share, right? Did I buy any? No. Why didn't I buy any? I didn't have any money, whatever, you know, I'm not thinking that far ahead. Was I thinking what was going to happen in 30 years or 40 years? Hell no, man. Hell no. Same thing with the Amazon. It wasn't until I was using all of Amazon's services that I started buying the stock and made money that way, right? But it sure would have been nice to have gotten it at 18 bucks, man, or 14 bucks or whatever. Anyways, I kind of see this as that kind of a long-term play. Nobody knows what the hell is going to happen. But let's look at this. Today, using my forecasts, I could say that maybe we'll have 4 million T-shares in 2039. Right? So this is what I can say based on all this information that we have. Well, that would give us a payout of something like 22 hex per T-share. Roughly, right? You know, in that kind of range, plus or minus some. How many T-shares do we have right now in 2039? 17,000. 17,000 is not 4 million, right? So you do the math. And now I just know from my personal interaction with X and the contract that, yeah, I can say all I want about stuff, but when I go to actually try to go get the Hex and try to make the T-share and, you know, bring it all together, it's not that easy to do, right? The damn T-share rate keeps going up and I got to put value in to get the Hex. So if we don't have the demand, we have a lull in demand right now for the T-shares out there. Who's going to fill in those other 3 million and some odd T-shirts so that we have them out there? Well, they'll come later, right? Somebody will come later. And that's where the opportunity is for us, because if you had gotten your T-shirt now and it takes someone else 3 years to get in, they're going to pay 60% more in terms of Hex for the T-shirt, which means you're winning all day long a return on investment. And that just even assumes that they could actually get them all and they actually make the thing work. What's likely going to happen is we're going to see a period of time out there where people who are mining, I don't even know the numbers. I can't even say the number out loud because it could be in the thousands. Certainly could be in the hundreds of Hex per T-share. And so in a world where Pulse Chain's operating and still working and, you know, crypto's still a thing, which I'm guessing it's going to be a thing, right, in 15 years. you've got all this liquidity. I showed you the numbers on V1. That liquidity is not going anywhere on V1, right? With the hex, there's always going to be a price. Even if people don't mind, there'll be a price.
Mm.
Because if more people don't mind, there'll still be a price because people will be speculating on the hex. And so, anyways, I think getting, 100%, 1000% APY on my stakes out there is going to feel pretty good. So anyways,
Oh, yeah.
I digress. Anyways, I'm super excited. Here's the TLDR. I'm super excited. Nobody but me is staking. So, and a few other people. I shouldn't make it all inclusive. There's other people doing it, but
There's a
very
big
few of us.
difference between the 17,000 T-shares that have been created in 2039 and the 4 million T-shares that are theoretically possible. Is that
the
what you're
forecast.
saying?
It's huge, man.
Or the forecast.
It's huge.
The
Yeah,
forecast.
and that's just assuming, which we're not seeing people do the mining out there. So, I mean, we are seeing people do mining, so I shouldn't say it that way. What we're not seeing is additional adoption, because when I'm wearing my pulse chain hat, I'm all about trying to figure out how do I get out in the next year. Now, I'm thinking about 15 years. So I'm wearing my hex hat. That's a whole different story.
Yeah. Wow. Very good. Well, should we start wrapping it up
We
there?
should wrap it up.
Okay.
I know this hex talk is boring. I do it every week. I do love talking about it though, because you know what? I'm joking about it being boring, but that's my sense of humor. I know you like it and you want more of it, Maddie. But I do the stream every week on the T-share stuff, and I swear I feel like we're just creating this community, this walled garden community of these miners. Hey, listen, I mean, I want more people to come in. I want adoption. Don't get me wrong, but if all the fudders are absolutely correct and I'm just wrong, and that's the worst thing to do, and nobody's going to stake, I guess I'm just going to earn thousands and thousands and millions of hex per day because everybody else is going to emergency unstake and get out. And in the game of hex, it just means I win.
The early Bitcoin adopters, some of them had the same attitude. I think, Satoshi was quoted as saying, like, maybe you should get some just to see if it catches on. And then Max Kaiser was saying, or somebody else said, I don't have time to explain it to you. Either you get it or you don't. And then there were plenty of people who had enough participation in the system that they wanted to go evangelize about it. And you and I are in that group of people that continue to evangelize years after the fact and years, like into the future with our staking behavior, which is really cool. And I would strongly recommend that people tune in to your weekly streams on your channel, where you break down the data of what's happening with hex. And you also have a very calming voice and a very positive, calm demeanor. And so I appreciate tuning into your streams for not only what you say, but how you say it.
Thanks, Maddie. I appreciate that a lot. Thanks.
Yeah.
I learned that from having 6 kids and being married for 40 years to the same woman.
Respect. That's incredible.
Oh yeah, I had to learn patience. All right, man. Wasn't always that way.
So awesome. Well, and where can people find your YouTube content and your other material?
Just come on over to hexfire.io. We're here on YouTube, hexfire.io.
Awesome. And for
Peace.
me, it looks like this experiment is off to a good start. It's Maddie token went from $1 to $5.13 now. So it's off to a good start. There's a link in the description to follow the tweet to see what the real contract address is. And again, like until Pateus adds the router manually, the path, I believe people are getting the least slippage. So they're getting the best deal by trading directly on pulsex.com. and then going to the you know, the IPFS link there. And
and that tip works for all tokens, not just the Matty token, the ones that are primarily on there.
Excellent. And perfect. So
yes,
there we have it. If you're in Austin, Texas for this Ethereum conference, I hope I will see you amongst the 15,000 people that were so crypto enthused that they decided to pay this high price for a ticket to the conference. It was like $1,500 to go for 2 or 3 days. And so that's going to be a huge concentration of people that I hope come on over to Hex and Pulse Chain. And I'll be giving out business cards and, you know, some souvenirs and stuff. So hopefully that goes well. I might make a few like 1-minute clips from the conference and just keep promoting these awesome DeFi cryptos. So
sweet.
There you go. So until next time, stake wisely, my friends, and peace out.
Peace out. Yeah, stay crispy. Need Tobiwan.
TA with Toby.